Hi there, and welcome to the Call to Cinema. And today is the story of two men and a dream they had for a specific label. Brian Jameson and Nick Redman. So Brian Jameson was already known as being the respected film preservationist, as was said by the Times columnist. He'd been involved in the reconstruction of films like Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch and Samuel Fuller's The Big Red One, just to name a couple. Davison was one of those directors who had started to include documentaries into classic films and into classic cinema. To him, it was very important to really kind of keep the idea of like what cinema meant, the literacy, the importance, the power of film. Nick Redman had directed and produced some of the documentaries that were put on some of those releases. He did the Beyond Becoming John Ford documentary, did the Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, did a bunch for Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, including like One Foot in the Grave, as well as being a music producer on things like Alien Legacy, James Dean Forever, and a whole host of others. It seemed inevitable that these two men would come together and make something truly epic, and they did. See, in 2011, Brian Jameson and Nick Redman came together to create the label Twilight Time. At the beginning, Twilight Time was meant to like hit upon like earlier cinema, like the Technicolor era, 50s and 60s, going to some earlier stuff. When they started, one of the big things that they did right away was because he had such good contacts, they were able to start it with some really good stuff right out of the gate. See, they got the license for films from 20th Century Fox Library. They got for 20 films altogether. The very first film that they did was from 1970. It's a movie called The Kremlin Letter. It's a espionage thriller and directed by John Huston. It was a good example of some of the stuff that they would get. Within the same year, by September that very same year, they'd signed their second big deal with another label. That'll be Sony, and that's where we'd see a lot of stuff coming from. Now, under the Sony label, they went for a lot of different pictures, including the first one, which was Mysterious Island, and they would go way into Ray Harryhausen and a lot more, as well as a classic 80s vampire film, my personal favorite, Fright Night. For real. Now, here's the thing. The company went on extremely well for quite a long period of time. They were pretty much known for their premium-looking packaging, their booklets that just were concise and well-written, all done by the same person, by the way, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And it's also kind of important to know that Twilight Time, as they were then, probably would be even more successful today with the way boutique labels have kind of come to their own if it wasn't for the unfortunate passing of Nick Redman in 2019 at the early age of only 63 years old. With that, by May 10th of 2020, the news came out. It was officially announced Twilight Time will be closing their doors. The label would be no more. There'd be a big sale on the Twilight Time website. There'd be a sale on Screen Archives Entertainment, the company that like kind of really sold a lot of Twilight Time releases. We'll put a pin in that because we'll come back to that in a little bit. But on May 10th of 2020, it seemed like Twilight Time was gone forever. I have a modest amount of Twilight Time releases in my collection, 14 in total, to be precise. And I thought what I'd do is actually show you guys the ones that I got and give you a little bit more information on how and why I picked them up. First off is Strange Invaders. So this one here was a bit of a big deal for me because I'd always wanted to own this film, and it's kind of a quirky, you can almost see it being into like a Twilight Zone type of episode, because it's a film that's different, and it's not not as harsh as you would expect for some films. This here is the booklet that was included with the poster on the back. And although the booklets are small, they're all smartly written, and they're all written by Julie Kurgo, who would be the who would do every one of these here booklets. Now this here starts off like feature-wise with an isolated score, which was kind of one of the big things for Twilight Time. See, Nick Redman was, music was his thing. He was in music. He actually had nominated for awards with that. And isolated scores were very important for him to put onto these releases. It was what he considered kind of like the diamond for a lot of these Twilight Time releases. And they really, really are. Still to this day, anybody that's a bit of an audiophile are very much into the isolated score. We do get an audio commentary with the director, Michael O'Loughlin, and writer William Condon, and original theatrical trailer. Now, more often than not, Twilight Time releases, I think we're usually, I would have to check. We usually put it limited to around 3,000 copies. So that's always, but we'll go through and I'll let you know if there's any ones that have a lower ranking than that. As a neo-noir person, the next one is actually kind of a favorite of mine, and that is Romeo's Bleeding. One that has a great isolated score with some effects as well, and original theatrical trailer. That's pretty much all the things on here. This one did have a, again, limited run of 3,000 units, an isolated score and cast with Gary Oldman, Lena Olin, and Annabella Sciorra. We actually mentioned recently when talking about another film. It has a wonderful, booklet on the inside as well, with the beautiful Lena Olin on the cover and the poster on the back. Each one of these would be usually have artwork on the inside as well. Twilight Time releases always seem like you're getting a premium release, something that was very very special. Next up is Rapid Fire, of course, with Brandon, the late Brandon Lee. A good one. Again, we get the isolated score track here, an audio commentary with the composer Christopher Young, and film historian Nick Redman, which I haven't actually got to listen to yet, but I really should, because knowing Redman's love of music, having him do a commentary with the composer has to be something that's got to be utterly fantastic. We get an introduction by Brandon Lee from back, our archival stuff there with archival featurette and original theatrical trailer. As always with these here, you get the incredible booklet with some wonderful artwork, and the all done by the great Julie Kurgo. They really did a good job of making these releases right out of the gate look like premium releases, things that were important. Next up's a classic, and I do have the Scream Factory edition of this one, but call me a bit of a snob. My Twilight Time release is still my favorite, and that is this one right here, The Blob. I love this one here. This is one of the best remakes out there, right up there with The Fly, just right on par. I'm gonna put it up there. Isolated score, an audio commentary track with director Chuck Russell and Ryan Turek as well. Friday Night Frights at the Cine Family, original theatrical trailer, and this one here was, because he knew this was going to sell extremely well, this one actually got 5,000 units. If I didn't mention it before, this one here was 3,000. And trust me when I say the horror ones sold extremely well. Now, there was a slight controversy when it came to some of the Twilight Time releases. The biggest one would probably be the Night of the Living Dead. The Savani directed Night of the Living Dead had a little bit different coloring and certain sound effects that had been missing. Now, Savani was really complimentary with what they had done with it, because I think that the color timing had actually been something that the cinematographer himself had been a part of. So it was only a controversy among the collectors world, but the people who made the film, they actually were extremely happy with it. One of my favorite films, and probably my favorite Bronson film, is this one right here, and that is 10 to Midnight. A beautiful cover from Twilight Time with again 3,000 units. We get an isolated score with effects, audio commentary with producer Pancho Conner, casting director John Crowther, and film historian David Duvall, radio spots, and original theatrical trailer. When you open it up, you get this absolutely stunning looking booklet, and I do want to show this off right here. A great release. Going big into the Bronson stuff, we got another good Bronson one right here, and it's The Mechanic. Another one that I love and that had like 3,000 units. Isolated score, of course. We get a audio commentary with cinematographer Richard H. Klein and film historian Nick Redman, an original theatrical trailer. It must be really great to have like this, like these commentaries with Redman, where he's passed away. Today is the birthday of my grandfather. He passed away sadly years ago, but he would actually this would have been his 100th birthday, and I would have loved to have had like some. I have like a little CD with him singing on it, and I would love to have more of that. So I can just imagine like Nick Redman's family must be really glad to have those slices of wisdom there, things to look back on, to listen to remember. I love the next one here, and it's a Randall Kleiser film, of course, who did Grease. But this is my favorite of his, and it is Summer Lovers. Now it stars Peter Gallagher, Daryl Hannah, and I always got to look for the last name, Valerie Quinison. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. A beautiful film, shot, if I'm correct, I think this was shot in Greece. Yeah, it's in the Greek island of Santorini. And it's about a couple, played by Gallagher and Hannah, that decide to open up their relationship and bring a third party, a female, in there with them. So Summer Lovers is just a beautiful film, and a lot of it has to do with just the stunning like cinematography and the location. But it's a great character piece, and I think it works really well. It's a very underrated film. I love it. The next movie that I'm going to show you, by the way, and just so you know, these are all like 3,000 units, was one that had 5,000 units. And I think when this one was announced, and when it went up for sale, it sold out within 5 or 10 minutes. I'm not even like, that's not hyperbole. That's how quickly this release went. See, he did edition of Fright Night, and it sold extremely well. It had been rumored that another edition of Fright Night, a 30th anniversary edition, was coming out with a whole list of features and a brand new, whole new booklet and everything. So it came out, and when it did, it became one of, if not the quickest selling, like Twilight Time editions of all time. It sold out extremely quickly, and they did load this one up with features. This one here has an isolated score track. We get audio commentary with writer-director Tom Holland, actors Chris Sarandon, Jonathan Stark, moderated by filmmaker Tim Sullivan. We get a second audio commentary with writer-director Tom Holland, William Ragsdale, Stephen Jeffries. We got FX artist Randall Cook, moderated by Jeremy Smith and Tim Sullivan. And what's really neat here, we get the first ever Fright Night reunion panel that was done at Fear Fest back in 2008. Shock to Your Job presents choice cuts with Tom Holland and Ryan Turek. A vintage EPK kit, which includes the often hard to find music video Fright Night by the Jay Giles Band, along with some stills and memorabilia gallery from Tom Holland's archive. And man, does this one have one of the best looking booklets available. Look at that. Just look how wonderful that looks. Just absolutely stunning. And keeping into the vampire vein of everything, I have here, and I have the Scream Factory edition of this one as well, but as always, I love my Twilight Time editions, and this is Vampires by John Carpenter. On this one here, we have an isolated score track, audio commentary with writer-director John Carpenter, the making of John Carpenter's Vampires, and original theatrical trailer. As for the booklet on the inside, it's again another stunning piece of art, and it is right here. Vampires had 5,000 units. The horror titles tended to sell extremely well for Twilight Time. Speaking of titles that are kind of horror, but one that has only 3,000 units, there is the fun little classic here, Scream and Scream Again. We get an isolated score track, a commentary with Dave Duvall and Tim Sullivan, Gentleman Gothic, Gordon Hessler, AIP, interview with Uda Lefka, hopefully I pronounced that right, Stills Gallery, radio spot, and original theatrical trailer. We get a booklet that looks as cheesy as it should for the movie that we got. It's such a fun film. There's so many what's the inside right here? So many great people working on this one here. And it just works, even though I think under a lesser cast, it wouldn't. And next up we have The Doll of Satan. We got an isolated music and effects track, auto commentary with film star Dave Duvall and Derek Botello. Definitely an interesting, fun little title. We got 3,000 units for this one right here. And I love the booklet again. The artwork on this one is actually absolutely fantastic. Look at this. Just got 3 more to go, and we're finished my entire collection. We got The Believers, another fantastic film. 3,000 units on this one here. Special features, just isolated score and original soundtrack. But again, it's got an interesting booklet here, and I think The Believers is something that deserves a bit of a reevaluation because I really enjoyed this film. Oddly enough, I would probably put this one on as a double feature with Woofin', if I was to choose. The utterly stunningly fantastic gut punch of Giallo, which is Short Knife Glass Dolls. We have an isolated music track here, audio commentary with Dave Duvall and Matteo Molinari, original English and Italian theatrical trailers. A great cast here with Gene Sorel, Barbara Bach is in this one. Music by Ennio Morricone, so you know it's going to be a fantastic isolated score, and wonderful artwork for the booklet on the inside of here. And if you've never seen this movie, you really owe it to yourself to go on as blind as you can when you check it out. And last but definitely not least is a classic vampire film. And it is, this one had 3,000 units. And it is Count Yorga. I just love the cover that they used for this one right here. We got some nice features on here as well. A lot of them ported over. So we get the isolated score track, auto commentary with film historians Dave Duvall and Tim Sullivan. By Dinner with the Yorga, the Robert Quarry Rue Morgue interview, a reading by Dave Duvall and Tim Sullivan. Fangirl Radio tribute to Robert Quarry with Tim Sullivan. Still Gallery, the MGM Archives. Still Gallery, the Tim Sullivan Archives. An original theatrical trailer. A wonderful classic and very classy booklet on the inside of this one here, and a very different poster. And I absolutely adore the artwork on the inside of this one. So there you go, just 14 titles, but 14 titles that I'm not just extremely proud to have, but sometimes when I'm looking over some of my collections, my boutique labels, I'll look and say, okay, this is good and this is good. This is kind of a soft one, but I always say whether it's just that I chose extremely well, or Twilight Time is just that damn good, but there isn't a bad title amongst those 14. Definitely not in my opinion, and I'm very proud to have them. Luckily though, that would not be the case. On the 10th of May, it was announced that Twilight Time was gone, it was closing down. But one of the worst kept secrets in the industry at the time, from a lot of people, even remotely in the know, was that Screen Archives Entertainment, among others, were looking at Twilight Time's catalog of films. See, Twilight Time had a catalog list of 380 films, classic, great cinema. Now, Sony had recently, previously to that, taken back Christine and Fright Night because they'd seen how well and how popular they had done. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. So they could kind of do their own versions of it. But there was such a massive library, a catalog, that the word was out. Where exactly were these movies going to go? And it was exactly where everybody thought they were going to go. See, on the 14th of May, just 4 days after the announcement of the closure of Twilight Time's label, it was listed in brevity because he couldn't get into the whole basic. He couldn't get into the details at that point, but it was announced that Screen Archive Entertainment had bought the catalog for Twilight Time, and they would keep Twilight Time going. And that's where you can buy Twilight Time titles to this very day. Actually, if you want to look at them, then there's Screen Archive Entertainment, and we're going to look at them here in a little bit. I'm going to give some recommendations. So let's do that next. As you can see, as we dive into the Screen Archives Entertainment website, here are their Twilight Time releases, and I'll just go over a couple really quickly. I don't want to keep this too long. But there's some really great releases there, some very different stuff. We have We Are the Never Never from 1982. Fantastic film if you've never seen it. I strongly recommend it. We have Messalina here. Seven Deaths in the Cat's Eye is one that I 100% need to pick up. It's by Antonio Margaretti. And there's some really good stuff here. Some good, like Man from Hong Kong, We the Never Never, are, of course, are both like Australian pictures. Very different Australian pictures. There's some westerns here, like The Tall Man. We have Whirlpool here with Gene Tierney and good old Elvis in Wild in the Country with Tuesday Weld. Such a wide range of things. I know I have like a edition of Hussey here. It's a great Helen Mirren picture. And we have like Martha Ray and Pinup Girl. Certain things stand out as ones that I really need to get and really want. I would eventually love to grab Warlock and The Snake Pit with Liv de Havilland, which is a really good underrated picture, as is Three Kinds in the Fountain, which of course has a great Louis Jourdan in there. You can see movies here like The River's Edge. There's Talk Radio. I really like this movie. I did journalism in school. And so I did journalism after school, and this is kind of like a radio, kind of a shock jock type picture with Eric Bogosian. Well, Successful Rock Hunter was an incredible stage play that made a absolutely fantastic, funny movie with the beautiful Jane Mansfield in here. Tony Randall was absolutely spot on, as is Mickey Hargitay in this film, and I would recommend this one to anybody. As you can see, the prices are actually fairly good, with like $19.95. Being the range for the titles here, all on Blu-ray, and a ton of great releases. Different types of films, like stuff like Black Widow with Ginger Rogers, Gene Tierney, as I showed earlier, Short Night of the Glass Dolls. The Sword of Sherwood Forest is a Hammer film with the great Terrence Fisher. And all in all, I think there's like 2 pages of titles here, which is great. But I mean, at a point when there was used to be like 380, and where it looks like now we are down to what's available at this particular moment. I just want to make sure. No, actually, we got at least 3. No, we got 4 pages, so we still have around maybe close to 200 titles here. So there's a whole bunch of ones that I want to look at sometimes when we do a nice live video. But I just wanted to take a little quick look at the Screen Archives Entertainment website, which I do recommend that you check out. So it's basically screenarchives.com, and it's a fun little place to find some great Twilight Time titles. I can't think of a better way to finish this off than with a good old-fashioned ranking list of my top 5 Twilight Time releases in my collection from 5 to 1. So let's do that now for a little bit of fun. In 5th place is The Blob. I absolutely adore this film. I could watch this one over and over with the amazing cast. Just great people from like Shawnee Smith to Kevin Dillon to Kenny Clark. Absolutely adore the film. In fourth place is Romeo's Bleeding. Again, I'm a huge neo-noir fan. Noir alongside Giallo and tends to be one of my, and slasher tend to be my favorite genres, and this one really did stand the test of time. In third place is my favorite Bronson film, 10 to Midnight. If you haven't checked this out, I really recommend that you do. I know that Scream Factory now, I know this one's out of print, of course, but Scream Factory did a banger of a disc when it came to 10 to Midnight. And in second place is Summer Lovers. I just absolutely adore the film. I love the setting, the acting, the whole dynamics behind it, and it's my favorite vampire film. Really, it is actually not just modern. I think probably is my favorite vampire film, and it's my favorite Twilight Time film too, and that would be Fright Night. For real, it's been a great journey with Twilight Time, and I hope down the road to get some of the new Twilight Time releases and just to dive in because such great work was put in that, and I want to see that the quality is still there. I do not know, and since I have not picked up any of the new releases, and I would say they're probably not. The booklets are probably not included anymore, which would be a shame because Julie Kruger did some really great booklets, but I think she retired from doing those. Either way, I want to thank you guys for joining me today here in the Call to Cinema, and let me know your favorite Twilight Time release in the comment section down below, and I'll see you next time.